Hi, everyone, and welcome back. Welcome to SheetsCon. If you're just joining us, my name is Ben Collins, and I'm here organizing SheetsCon today. And with me here on the stage, we have our next guest, and that is Andy Rudd. And he is from the Google Sheets team. He's a project manager on the Google Sheets team. So we actually have someone from the mothership with us today. So get all your questions ready. Every question you've ever wanted to ask about Google Sheets, get them ready for Andy. So he's going to give us a really interesting talk here about the looking sort of behind the scenes a little bit with Google Sheets, about how they create new features and what new features have been released recently and what's sort of in the pipeline a little bit as well. So should be a really interesting 45 minutes here with Andy. So I'm going to drop out now and leave Andy to tell us all about Sheets. Please leave lots of questions in the chat in the side there. I'll collect them all together for Andy and jump back in for a Q&A at the end there. So thanks, Andy, and see you later on.
Cool. Thank you so much, Ben. I think just off the top, I'm amazed with your effort in putting this conference together. I ducked into a few sessions this morning. It seems like it's been pretty smashing success so far. So I hope we can keep that going. Awesome. So let me pull up my slides here. I'm going to share my screen. Wonderful. Okay. Think we should be good to go there. So awesome. So as Ben mentioned, we're going to do a bit of a behind the sheets view into how we think about what we should build and why we do those things. And let's get started. So as Ben mentioned, my name is Andy Rudd. I'm a product manager. I have been with Google and with Google Sheets for coming up on 2 years in June of 2020. So incredible learning experience being on attending to a product with such passionate users. And obviously getting to know Ben and building that relationship has been critical to my success in that role over time. So a couple of the topics that we want to go through today, and when Ben and I kind of got together and thought about what would be interesting to share, I think there might be not a lot of transparency around how we hear from users, how we gather feedback and what that feedback really means to us. So starting us off, I'm going to talk through some of the different ways that we do collect feedback, some of the different channels that are available to us. And then I want to do kind of a journey through recent launches that have gone out over the past few quarters. And hopefully there's some new stuff there for folks that follow along. Super continue to invest feedback and what does it mean to us. As I mentioned, there are many different channels. And I want to touch on a couple here that are particularly compelling and have been really meaningful for me personally in the few years that I've been working on Sheets. So the first is Google Developer Experts. You've already heard from a few of those folks today. Ben, of course, is one. Cleo, who just led the talk immediately before myself, is one as well. Product Experts and Product Expert Summits have been really valuable for me. We'll talk about G Suite Go Lives and in-product feedback. So let's dive into it. Cool. So Google Developer Experts, as I mentioned, are super critical to our engagement with users and our ability to understand what is really pressing in terms of user needs at any given time. These folks really embody the utmost product knowledge. They're immense advocates for ourselves and our users and anyone that wants to be a good steward of what it means to use Google Sheets. These people teach, they speak, they publish content that's helpful for users of our products. And they engage with us. I think one really impactful thing, I hope Ben doesn't mind me saying, a couple months ago, he came to New York to visit the Sheets team here and gave us a really wonderful life journey of how his career started and how he navigated to being interested in data products and becoming masterful with data, and how that eventually manifested into becoming one of the most visible and powerful advocates of Sheets. And these are really super impactful experiences for us as the team that is building and prioritizing the feature. So there are nearly 700 of these folks across the globe. They represent a few dozen different Google technologies. I think as of the last count, we have almost 30 that are G Suite specific. And then some number of those folks are super powerful Sheets users, obviously, as well. So how are these folks chosen? They must be a master of their subject area. That's obviously the most important component. we like to see that these folks are continually engaged with and make visible their engagement in the community, whether that's the startup community, the developer ecosystem in particular, and they're meaningfully and consistently providing advice to other Google product users. That's been really powerful. Another kind of brand of that, there's another program called Product Experts that anyone can become a part of. So I think if you just search Google Product Experts, you'll kind of be taken to a page where you can see what this means. But these are folks that, kind of no barriers to becoming a product expert. You can go to that site, you can sign up with your Google account, and you can start getting engaged with users of our products on help forums. It's a really immense perspective in terms of what users are most frustrated with, what's working really well for them as they maybe migrate from using other tools. And these folks are super invaluable to us as well. I think in particular about times when we bring these people together and get to hear from them in person. So I threw a few photos on this slide of opportunities I've had to meet up with our product experts over time. This was a year and a half ago in Sunnyvale, where we gathered all these folks together. Most folks in this room are super passionate Sheets users. So it was just an incredible opportunity to hear from them about the top user issues that they're coming across in various forums. B, their own personal top user issues. So as power users of our products, those tend to be more nuanced and supercharged, but it's always amazing to hear about those things and bring our users together to share what they've heard over any course of time. I want to talk about go lives. So when companies come and go through a G Suite migration, for example, there's often these live events that we host where Google will sort of embed with the team, with different parts of the company as they're starting to use G Suite tools for the first time. I was super fortunate to be part of one of these just a few months ago. And it was just an absolutely incredible experience to sit desk side with folks that have maybe never used G Suite tools before, in their personal life, in a professional setting, and to absorb and hear about their first reactions to things. So, it's probably not surprising that mail and calendar are the first things that people need to master as they come onto this new suite of tools. And certainly many questions emanate from understanding those products, but it's a phenomenal opportunity for us to get as close as we literally possibly can to end users of all G Suite products and hear from the horse's mouth what really matters to users and what's frustrating them in these first few moments of being on the G Suite, what they're surprised by. And these are signals that we can bring back and try to emphasize or mitigate in our product roadmaps. And then in-product feedback. So I want to show this off. I hope folks know that this exists, but I wanted to make it clear that we certainly care about this. It's a really powerful signal for us to understand what users are wanting, to hear about bugs that are occurring in the product that we might want to dig into further, and really to figure out what we should be prioritizing. So as you can imagine, we get a lot of feedback through this mechanism. And we do review it regularly. We track trending topics. We track new or emergent before. And we hope in the course of doing that, we can either, better communicate workarounds that exist in Sheets for, certain workflows that folks are trying to achieve, or evaluate whether we need to make an addition to our product roadmap. So just to make sure everyone's aware of this, I want to pull up a sheet. Sheets.new, one of my favorite tips, directly in the browser bar, you can create a fresh canvas to work from. So we'll zoom in a little bit here. That might not be necessary, actually. So just to make sure everyone knows, in the help menu, we have this send feedback to Google option. It's as simple as describing what you want. So I know one of the things I saw in the chat room earlier today was, we really want filter by color. Please bring that to us. So I can type directly in that field. I can include a screenshot of what's actually happening on my screen, and that eventually will make its way back to us to evaluate. Cool. So that was quick, but those are some really powerful ways that we hear from our users that we wanted to highlight. Cool. So maybe the more exciting, compelling, interesting stuff. Let's talk about things that we've done recently or things that we're working on and hope to bring to you soon. So drum roll, please. One of the really exciting things that we launched just today is the ability to filter and sort by color. As obvious from anyone that was sitting in that chat room, this is something that folks are really hungry for and have been asking for, and we're really excited that we have now built it natively into our existing filter and sort menus. So it launched just today. You should be seeing this in the product over the next few weeks. We'll gradually roll it out to folks. And let me quickly just show you what it looks like. So I have a sheet here, zoomed in, so I hope folks can see that. Great, so I've got, let's just imagine for the sake of this scenario, I'm evaluating some sales opportunities at my company. These are maybe sales that have been closed or in the process of being closed. And as we all know, we have kind of our own color schematic system for highlighting things that might matter to us, whether they're indicative of the status of a certain row or array of cells, or whether they're just notes to ourselves that we want to come back and revisit something later. So filter by color hopefully doesn't need too much explanation, but I entered the regular filter box. I see this filter by color option now, and I have the ability to filter by fill color, so the background color of the cell, or the text color. So if the font is in a different color, I might have that option available. Here, everything is uniform. It's in black font color. So that option is not available to me. So let's just use it. I'm going to filter for those yellow cells. Again, maybe these are things I highlighted for myself to come revisit in the near future. We've got a column over here with text color, so I'll just show you what that looks like. So let's filter by the text color, and let's do this crazy neon green. Awesome. And so now we've done this amazing color filtering. It's awesome. I'm super excited about it. We've been working on it for a bit, and it's great to have it in folks' hands. So just to show off the sort super quickly, sort by color, as you can imagine, will bring the selection to the top of your range. So there I said, let's bring anything with a background color yellow to the top. Do the same thing on over here with the sort, and let's bring up those red text cells to the top of our range. Awesome. So hopefully you guys are able to use that soon. We've just published our update to the G Suite Updates blog. Let me show that off really quickly as well. I think this is one of the best sources for learning about what's new across all G Suite products. And we've just pushed this content update out this morning. So check that out. Cool. All right, let's move on. We've made some awesome updates to our Android mobile apps over the last few months. Nothing from a feature perspective here, but we think there's a lot greater visual identity in across docs, sheets, and slides. So you'll see visual improvements here. We've got new and improved document listing, typefaces we hope are more legible, and then you'll see some consistency and controls about how you interact with these products across apps on Android. GoalSeek is an exciting add-on that we published recently. So for those capability before, imagine you have a revenue goal that you want to achieve in 2021, and you know what that number is, that dollar amount that you want to hit, but you don't know how many units of your various products you need to sell in order to achieve that goal. So with GoalSeek, you can kind of point to different cells that need to have that value in your sheet, indicate a desired cell that has a formula value baked in, and run the GoalSeek and achieve your desired objective. So we've launched that as an add-on. The G Suite Marketplace is an incredible resource for different extensibility options on top of our products. It's published by Google Cloud. You can go check that out and install it, and that will appear in your add-ons menu in Sheets. Very cool. So moving forward, we've done a lot of serious investment in charts. We've brought them a long ways, particularly in terms of being more customizable and flexible to doing precise positioning, customization of colors to exactly what you might want, depending on what kind of visualization you're trying to bring to life. So one of the first things we did was changing or adding the ability to change the border color on charts. So previously we had this kind of gray default that always existed around the chart object in Sheets. you can now make that transparent. If you want it super flat, you can bring new color in as a border. That's super cool when you're building out dashboards or reports. But that's not it. We've continued to invest in these chart customization features. So now you can click on data labels or different elements of a chart to remove them. So we see in that top right GIF, we're deleting some data labels just to improve legibility and call out particularly powerful data points that we want users to see when they come and check out our amazing analysis. You can reposition those labels. These things are super useful, as I mentioned, when you've got a key data point or a cluster of key data points that you really want to show off. If you want to improve legibility, maybe everyone's familiar with how your company or your team thinks about what the legend items are, and that might not be necessary. It's all about bringing more flexibility to how you build these things in Sheets. We introduced new types of charts. So scorecard charts are a recent addition over the last few quarters, where you can really quickly and emphatically highlight a KPI. So here we're showing there's a big quarterly revenue number that we want to emphasize and be super consumable by anyone that pops into our sheet or maybe our slide if we've embedded this into a presentation format as well. One thing I really like to use is this comparison that you see in the bottom of this scorecard chart. So what's actually happening there is there's some baseline number that's been pointed to in the chart editor. And we show you sort of a trend over time relative to that baseline number based off of your top line KPI. And there's still more. We're not done there. So we've invested further in this customization and aesthetic configuration options with themes. So within your format menu in Sheets now, you can either use one of a handful of default themes that we published to make your sheets beautiful and pop. You can drag multiple charts or objects at once. You can resize those things and get nice little alignment guides that will make you confident that things are the same size, that they're aligned top, bottom, right, or left, however you're configuring your dashboard to your needs. Cool. So I want to show off some of these things in action really quick, just to make sure everyone has seen these happen and has a sense of how they might use them. So let me insert a chart. Let's say we want to look at, I'm just going to drag this over here to make it a little bit easier for myself. Let's grab region and revenue here, and I'm going to insert a chart. Cool. I'm going to close that just for a second, and I'll drag this over to a cleaner space for us to work. And then let's do a scorecard chart as well that looks at all of our revenue. So I'm going to grab that whole revenue column, insert a chart again, and then let's get one of these new guys, scorecard chart, super cool. Okay, we'll drag that over. All right, so one of the first things I want to show off here is it looks like that scorecard chart has found the first value in the range that I selected, but I actually want it to give me the total. So I'm going to toggle this aggregate text box in my chart editor, and now that should give me a big, nice total revenue number. That's really cool. Okay, and then we also entered this revenue by region chart above here, and we're going to do a similar thing. So let's customize this bad boy. I'm going to hit aggregate again. So right now it's pulled in every row. That could be useful in certain circumstances, but I actually just want to see totals by region. So I'm going to aggregate, and now I've got basically somewhat of a pivot chart here that's just happened where we've collapsed down the different regions, and we are seeing them live. Oh no, just got a message from Ben that we are not looking at the sheet. Sorry for that. Give me a second to reconfigure here. Okay. Looks like we might be all right. Always fun trying out new presentation tools for sure. All right. So hopefully that's good. So again, just to summarize, in case folks couldn't see what was happening there. I'm working in that same sales opportunity spreadsheet that we were looking at with the filter by color example. I've added in a column chart where I can look at revenue across regions. I made one of these scorecard charts down here that I talked about. And let's show off some of these customization things. So let's add data labels. Very cool. So one of the things I talked about is that you can move these items individually. I don't know that I'd want to here, but just to show it off, I'm using my arrow keys just to bring one of these data points down. Maybe I'm not happy about it, so I want it to be further south than my visualization. But that's super powerful. I talked about the ability to remove the border colors. So that's something that's available in this chart styling option as well. I'm just going to get rid of it. I like my charts to be super flat and not have borders. I'm doing it on both of those guys. Cool. I'm going to get rid of grid lines really quick so we can start to feel like we're in a dashboard scenario here. And then the last thing I wanted to show off is just that auto alignment that I talked about. So this is subtle, but as I'm dragging these objects on my screen, are perfectly width matching the chart above. Cool. Jump back to our slides. Hopefully everyone's still with us. Another fairly recent addition we've made to the product is slicers. So I know some folks were showing these off earlier, but I really love using slicers in those kind of dashboard scenarios that we just walked through. A couple key things to know here. Of course, slicers give you this like new degree of interactivity on charts or pivot tables. So here we see pretty much the same scenario I was just working in. We've added a slicer that works on that region parameter. And then there's a couple charts in this dashboard looking sheet that will change their results based on whatever selection I've made. So maybe I can say I'm only interested in East, Central, and West right now, or select one of those many options. One really powerful thing about this that I love is I can share out this kind of polished, finished dashboard to my colleagues, and they can interact with the slicer independently. So maybe I have a friend, Ryan, another colleague on Sheets that is responsible for the central region. He can make that selection. I have another colleague, Rahul, that's responsible for the south. They can be in the same document using the same slicer and see different representations without interrupting each other's work. Super powerful aspect of slicers for sure. We love building out cool collaborative and tracking features for G Suite users. I think folks have come to expect this, and we must continue delivering on it and getting better here. So edit history of a cell is one example of us doing just that. Often it's nice to know who's made revisions over time in like an aggregate perspective. And for me, that's when version history and named versions are really powerful. But sometimes there's a super critical value, and I need to know who made a change and when they made a change. And in the worst case scenario, I might need to reach out to them to either figure out why they made that change and maybe mitigate it if it wasn't correct. So here, right click on any cell. You can see, as I mentioned, the user who last edited that cell. You can toggle through to see changes over time, and you can see the substance of those changes and a timestamp as well. We care a lot about data preparation and cleaning, and I hope that folks have been using these two fundamental features that we rolled out last year. First is remove duplicates. So no explanation needed here really, but we finally have this ability for users to grab an array from their sheet, go into the data menu, and then select this remove duplicates option. Here you can match exactly identical rows or select some subset of columns that you want to evaluate in order to identify duplicates. This and trim white space, which is the other one, are both supported by our APIs as well. So hopefully there's some cool things that you can build to maybe automatically clean up sheets in a new way. So trim white space is this ability to remove any excess leading or trailing, or maybe there's some spaces in the middle that are kind of funky. In the same few clicks, you can grab an array of cells, go into that data menu, trim the white space, and then have nice, neat data to work with. I find often, here when I'm taking exports from different data sources and I need to munge around and do some ad hoc analysis in a sheet, this is a really powerful way to just quickly expedite my analysis. Sometimes the formatting's off. Sometimes there's goofy things when you bring things into sheets from other file formats, and this is one of my first stops usually when I'm trying to get ready to find some insights. And so I think we will continue to be investing in cleaning and preparation, and in the interest of helping people get to analysis faster, with the confidence that their data is standardized, normalized, and has great integrity. Compatible keyboard shortcuts is another thing I wanted to talk about. So folks that have spent a lot of time using other spreadsheet products often have these shortcuts in their minds that they've learned through muscle memory over time. And I want to show off really quickly in any sheet how you might get to these and turn these on. So I started this new sheet over here. So again, I'm going to dip into our help menu. We've got this keyboard shortcuts option at the bottom. I am using a Mac, so you'll see Mac shortcuts if you're not familiar with those, but have no fear. You should see the operating system you're working on when you go into that menu item. So down here, first off, you can see keyboard shortcuts that are supported from Sheets out of the box. If you do want to have those compatible keyboard shortcuts turned on, you just toggle this bad boy down here. You can view those shortcuts and refamiliarize yourself with them if you'd like to. So that's a really powerful one. I think often when I talk to folks, they're not sure that exists. Admittedly, it is kind of deeply buried in that help menu. So I want to draw attention to it today. Cool. We are constantly thinking about ways that we can help folks that use other tools outside of G Suite work with those tools more seamlessly. And so there's a few more add-ons that I wanted to highlight that allow folks to bring in data from other third-party sources that they might be using, critical sources for their companies. One of the first is Zendesk. So Zendesk is a really critical tool for capturing and taking action on support for different companies. Customer service is run through Zendesk. Customer engagement is run. And so with this data connector for Zendesk, we allow you to configure different queries that will then return tickets or reports about tickets into your sheet and take action on them. You can set up scheduled refreshes for those queries that you've used before and have found valuable. And again, there's a couple different drill downs that we allow you to do, whether it's like a vast amount of tickets and you want to set some custom parameters to whittle down what's returned to you, whether it's about loading metrics reports. Again, these are all available in the G Suite Marketplace, which can be found through Marketplace, through searching the G Suite Marketplace and like custom queries or set parameters against those reports. With this add-on, you can actually push changes that you've made in Sheets back into Salesforce. So I've seen some customers and companies that have built really powerful workflows around that sort of two-way transfer of data, and we're hoping to improve it. We know that certainly Salesforce is becoming even more critical in any company's customer relationship management. If you use other tools, there are other CRMs that are represented on the G Suite Marketplace and similar capabilities, and dig around there, have a look. There's a lot of really powerful stuff. All right, and then lastly, I want to touch on something that maybe folks have heard about already, but we're continuing to invest in and make sure we nail this and get it right, because it is really changing what you can do with Sheets fundamentally. So Connected Sheets is this experience where users can connect to data that is stored in BigQuery. So that's a Google Cloud Platform data warehouse that customers keep billions and billions of rows of data in as tables in the cloud. We have released a stepping stone to this experience previously, which was a data connector where users could write custom SQL in order to retrieve data from BigQuery. This is really elevating that data connector and bringing it to life and allowing a wider funnel of users to actually start digging into insights that are stored in the cloud. So with the Connected Sheet, as I mentioned, you can make this connection. You can create charts and pivot tables and functions as you would natively with data that's held in Sheets. And you can hopefully share that insight that you've done with other folks at your company. So this is in beta right now. We hope that you'll hear more about this soon from us, but let's go into an example. And I'll start from scratch just to keep us honest. So I'm going to pull up another sheet. I'll zoom in a bit just so folks can follow along. We'll title this guy. All right, so let's start off by showing you how to get to this data first of all. So in the data menu, we have this data connection to BigQuery. I'm going to click on that. Here, I'll see any cloud projects that I have access to. So I know that there's one with some interesting public data sets in there with the Connected Sheets demo project. So I'm clicking into that project. Here I see different tables. Sorry. Clicking into that. Here I see different tables that I have access to and I can connect to. So there's one that I find kind of interesting. There's a service in New York City called City Bike, which is sort of like a short-term rental service where you can grab a bike from different hubs around the city and take it to your destination. So this hopefully has some information on, so here we see there's a table about the different stations around New York City. There's a table about the different trips that users have taken, I guess, over time, hopefully. So I'll click into that table. Again, there's no SQL involved here. I'm just getting access to this table without writing any lines of code. If I was comfortable with SQL and I wanted to get a little bit more precise with the connection that's made, I can write a custom query using that option there. But let's just see what we get out of the box. I'm going to connect to this guy. So here Sheets is talking to BigQuery. We're finding that table and we are returning a preview of the results of that table into Sheets. So it looks like we successfully made this connection. It's telling me that I can now go ahead and start analyzing this BigQuery data. And again, super powerful here. We're connected to data on a scale that is far beyond what we natively support within Sheets. So this data set is 59 million rows. It's 16 columns. And this experience can get you connections to data up to billions of rows. So let's start analyzing. Again, I'm first dropped into this data sheet preview experience. So I can see down here, this is just a subset of the 59 million rows of this data set. Let's get a sense for what's in here. So it looks like, as we suspected, this is kind of a track record of trips that have been taken over time. So it looks like we've got information about how long different rides were, when rides started, when they ended, the stations that they started at. So it looks like maybe each station has some kind of unique identifier. It's got an address, latitude, longitude. That's all interesting stuff, super cool. And then over here, okay, cool. We've got some like demographic information about the City Bike users as well. So we don't know too terribly much about them, but we know their gender and we know their birth year. That's cool. I think I can see some things that I'd want to analyze that maybe aren't like perfectly set up in this BigQuery table out of gate. So I'm going to show you guys how to make a calculated column really quick. Let's make a calculated column. So it looks to me, just eyeballing it, that maybe this trip duration column is, or parameter rather, is in seconds. And maybe that's something that we would want to be able to see in minutes. So let's make a new field, and let's call this trip duration minutes. I'll just call it mins. And that's going to be something like equals, let's see, trip duration. So I'm just going to click on that guy, and let's just divide it by 60. It looks like Sheets is happy, like that's going to return an actual value for us. So I'm going to add that. And that new calculated column will appear in my data sheet whenever I apply it. Let's go ahead and do that now and see what it looks like. So I'm applying, and now this preview will refresh. Okay, cool. So to me, that I think our hypothesis was right there. It looks like these are reasonable amounts of time to be riding a bike around New York City. So that maybe is a valuable thing a valuable feather in our cap. Let's do another one. I saw this birth year example. It might be nice to know like an approximate age of our riders. So let's do let's keep in mind that it's approximate because we don't have an exact date, but let's just call it rider age. And this one's going to look like, let's see, 2020, which is this year, minus the birth year field that we have available to us. We'll add that guy. We'll apply it again. And okay, that kind of makes sense. That's good. Okay, cool. So we've already done some crazy things that we couldn't do before. We've added new parameters to this view that we have of a table that's stored in BigQuery to aid our own kind of ad hoc analysis. So I'm going to make a chart just so we can start getting a sense of what this data actually looks like for us. So let's make a new sheet. And I think what I want to look at is just like trips over year. So we have a sense of what's in this public data set. I don't know that it's perfectly maintained, but maybe this will get us an idea. So I just dragged that start time parameter, which we know was like a full date time timestamp. But let's group it and look at that grouping by year. And then what I really want is just a count of the trips along those years over time. So for that, I can really pretty much grab any of these parameters. I'll just take trip duration here, and I don't want to sum it up. I want to take a count of anytime we have a value represented there across all of our years. So I think that's fine. Let's apply it and see what that gets us. Okay, cool. Looking good. I'll add so we start to get a sense there of the aggregate number of trips. It looks like this data set isn't perfectly maintained. Maybe it cut off sometime in mid 2018, but we have a good amount of data here, right? So from 2013 to 2018, we've got some representative data. I want to get a better sense of like when this starts and ends. So let's quickly use a function. So I jump back to our datasheet preview. I'm going to click on this function option, and let's just take the minimum, and we'll put this over here where we're doing our analysis. Oops. I'm going to grab this cell location. Okay. So now we're building a function that's working off that entire table that's stored in BigQuery, and we're looking at a minimum city bike trips. Let's look at the smallest start time we can find. So we'll find that. Applying that, searching the table. So it looks like this starts somewhere around July of 2013. That's good to know. Wonder if we can do the same thing on the maximum side. Really cool. You can just type straight ahead into the formula of the cell and get the same sort of experience. So this is our table, and this is the parameter I want to look at. Let's look at the maximum start time that we've got stored here. Let's see the results. Okay, cool. So as we suspected, it's kind of an incomplete picture here, but we're going all the way through from July of 2013 through June of so let's look at that really quick. I want to make a pivot table off of this datasheet preview. We'll just put it in the same sheet that we've been working from. Over here. Okay, cool. I'll add that guy in. Okay, so what did we say? We want to look at by birth year. So let's throw that into our rows. And by, no, I'm sorry. We made it even easier for ourselves, right? We want to look at by rider age. Let's throw that into our rows. And we want to know by gender, why not, what the average trip duration in minutes is. So I'm grabbing that calculated column I created. I'll drop in an average trip duration minutes. And let's apply this to see if we get some interesting insights here. I'm going to pause a moment. Ben has let me know that the video paused for a bit. So let's just make sure it gets unstuck before I keep going. So I'll try to summarize what happened there. I'm not sure exactly how much we missed, but I made a pivot table based off of some of the calculated columns that we made earlier on. So I want to see, my research question here is like, what is the average trip duration by age and by gender. So I made this pivot table off of our datasheet connection. I dragged that rider age column that we created into our rows. I dragged this gender parameter that I just happened to notice into our columns. And I dragged this trip duration in minutes field that we created into our values. And I said I want to find an average of that. Okay, so just to make this a little more, a little easier for us to consume, I'm going to grab the contents of our pivot table and do some conditional formatting on top of it. So really quickly, I'm just going to make a color scale that will make the really long trips jump out to us. Okay. So this could be kind of interesting, right? So it looks like, eyeballing it across the board, an average trip is maybe somewhere around 15 to 17 minutes. Interestingly, it looks like females that are registered as such in City Bike dataset take slightly longer trips. That's kind of interesting to know. And then notably, something that's kind of funny, it looks like a lot of people kind of goofed around with their registration count. I see people that are aged 146 years old that are taking 23-minute bike rides, which more power to them, but maybe gives me some questions about the veracity of their sign up. So hey, look, we've done some pretty cool analysis really quickly on 58 million rows of data. Found some interesting things we might want to dig into further. And we're doing it all from within a sheet directly. Pretty powerful. We're so excited about this. We hope we have updates for you guys soon on that front. Awesome. So I covered a lot. I know we had some transmission issues there. I'm going to stop sharing, bring my video back. And Ben, I'm happy to talk through any questions that we might have had.
Hi, Andy.
Hey, how's it going? Sorry about that. I was so excited about all the amazing things. Might have breezed past some stuff.
No, thank you. That was fantastic. I mean, I'm absolutely amazed at this connected sheets feature. It looks absolutely fabulous, and I think it's going to be a real game changer when that launches. And it seems like everybody in the chat is also really excited about that feature. Cool. So yeah, let's run through a few questions if you've got a little bit of time.
Sure.
So first is, do we have a release date yet for this connected sheets? Everybody's eagerly awaiting that one.
None that we can communicate today. So as I mentioned, we're in beta with that now. So actually, I had pulled up. Let me screen share one more time. If folks are interested in seeing what it means to sign up for that beta, I can share the link with you afterwards, maybe Ben. But there is a sign up link here on the G Suite site. Where we'll advertise some of what I talked about. We'll talk about that data connector that's been out for a bit, and then folks can apply if they want to be a part of that beta experience as well. So nothing to share yet in terms of a live date, but I hope we have news for you guys soon.
Great, thanks, Eddie. And then what about can you say anything about the costs of using, because BigQuery is a Google Cloud product that is a paid product, and so how will that work with the connector?
Yeah, for sure. So to many folks, I see some folks talking about what it means to make a connection. First of all, so yeah, you do need to have some Google Cloud projects and data stored in BigQuery for this to be relevant for you in the current state. I think some of those implications around pricing and availability are what we're working through right now. So again, sorry to be vague here, but nothing that we'd be willing to communicate right now. But we hope we have news on that front soon for sure.
Okay, great. Thanks. Awesome. Let's see what else. And then I have a long list here of feature requests, it looks like, which you can take back to the team. So first one here is when people are using import range formulas to bring data from a different sheet, if the tab name gets changed in that source sheet, in that original sheet, that's going to break your import range formula. Is there a way for that to propagate through automatically? I think quite a few people were talking about that one. That sounds like a great feature, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I think and I think what we should probably do here is that let's go through some of these. I'll go dig on the latest, and maybe we can try to publish some of the responses to these for sure.
That'd be
But
great.
I think import rate is something that I was not familiar with before being a product manager on Sheets, and it's just such an incredibly powerful feature. And it's one that we hope we can foster and make work for people that understand it, because it's really a magical feeling when you first use it or unlock it and understand how it can dynamically change what you're doing across documents in Sheets.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to give a quick shout out to one of the sponsors, SheetGo, because they actually build these workflow automations where they link your separate sheets. So they're kind of like an import formula, jacked up on to the 100th degree. So if you do a lot of interconnecting of your sheets and you're building those sorts of workflows, go and chat to the SheetGo guys and see how they can help you there. Okay, another question for you, Andy, is so Excel recently launched a function called the X lookup that's a bit like the V lookup, but more flexible, and can do left lookups and a few other bits and bobs. Any plans to launch something like
that? We shall see. I think we try to maintain function parity as much as we can. So, one of the things that we talk to customers a lot about is there's this myth, generally, I think, that we don't have a lot of the functions that folks that are power users are particularly familiar with using. And when really we do. We have over 400 functions, as you're well aware. And I think anytime there is a new function that exists in the world that is providing value for folks, we'll, as soon as we can, eagerly make that available in Sheets as well.
Awesome.
But I have seen that. It does seem pretty cool. It's all about time saving. So that's an interesting one.
Actually, last time I looked, I think it was Google Sheets had sort of 470 something functions, and Excel had about 450. So I think Sheets is actually just edging it. Not that it matters, by the way, folks. Both fantastic tools, and we're splitting hairs here.
That's exactly.
Okay, let me see what else we've got. Is it possible to have cell borders included in conditional formatting? So at the moment, obviously, you can have a conditional formats that say, change the background color of a cell to red when you hit a particular value. Can we also add the ability to add some borders in there, to put maybe a red box around a cell as an alternative? So that's a pretty cool idea. And then what about drop-down data validation cells when you're in view or comment mode only? Because I know certainly one thing I do, so data validation has this option to create little drop-down menus, which you can then use to add some interactivity to your reports or your charts. But when you share that sheet in view or comment mode, that gets then fixed, and whatever value it is, and that person you're sharing with can't then use that functionality. So that would be another pretty cool feature, I think.
Great ideas. Unsurprisingly, great ideas from us.
And then also, I think one thing that came up actually in the pivot tables talk that I think I've heard you mentioned before is when you click on a pivot table, it always defaults to popping up that editor. And for some people who are just, want to look at the data, they don't want to modify the pivot tables, that kind of sometimes overlaps with the pivot table, or it's kind of annoying. Anything on that front?
We're aware of that. I think, it's funny, last time, Ben, you and I talked about some other stuff that we've been investing in. That's one that always comes up. And it's obvious. It's funny that it came up again today. So we're certainly aware of that. We'll hope to fix that and have a better experience soon.
Okay, great. Sure. Let's see what else we've got here. Just a couple more, I think. With slices, I think people are really interested in being able to connect slices to specific pivot tables only. Having a little bit more control over what data the slicer hits. So I'm sure that, they're fantastic as they are, obviously, to have as something new that we can use to make our dashboards interactive. But I think, as they develop, it'll be even more powerful.
Yeah.
Very cool. Great. That's.
Hey, again, we'll have to figure out, I want to answer as many of these as I can with better answers than I have available to me in my mind. So let's make sure that we have a good list of these coming out of this, and I'll help you out with that. And we'll try to publish somehow answers to many of the cool ideas that people brought up.
That'd be great. Yeah.
And thank you again, Ben, so much. This is so cool. It's so exciting to see how energized folks are. We look for any opportunity we can to talk to customers. And I think, again, I talked about the GDE program. Ben is such a shining, stellar example of how that relationship can be so valuable for Google and for Google product users, and for everyone that's watching this today as well. So again, it's amazing what you've pulled together here today. Way ahead of the curve on the digital conference front, for sure, which is great and awesome for people considering everything that's happening. So thanks, Ben.
Sure. Well,
really appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy. And thank you as well for creating this Google Sheets product in the first place that we're all so passionate about and is so influential for us all. So everybody, thanks very much to Andy today for coming today. Give him a shout in the sidebar there. You can find him on Twitter if you want to continue that conversation. We'll share that link. So we now have another hour gap, folks, in the schedule. So it's another great opportunity to go and try out the networking if you haven't already, and also go and say hi to our any of our vendors as well, and check out their products and see what sort of ideas you can get from them about how you might, some fresh ideas to work. So 1 hour off, and then at 4 p.m. we're going to meet back here on the main stage, and our next guest is going to be Alice Keeler. And Alice is an ed tech innovator and a keynote speaker and a workshop presenter, and she's going to give us a talk about ways to love Google Sheets. So lots of really interesting things, tips and techniques and tricks in your Google Sheets that will wow you. So really excited about that one. And then finally at 5 p.m. today, we have Martin Hawksey, a Google developer expert. He's going to take a look into the future for us about how we control our Google Sheets with our voices. So that's one that I'm really looking forward to as well. So 2 fantastic talks to come at 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. I'm going to close out the main stage now, and we'll see you later on, folks. So keep entering the swag bag competitions and keep giving shout outs on social media as well. So thanks, folks, and we'll see you later on.